Benefit from no ATM fees nationwide with a Columbia Bank Advantage Plus checking account. Use any ATM anywhere nationwide for total convenience. Make any ATM your ATM. For Advantage Plus checking, receive credit up to 10 surcharges or $30 per statement cycle, whichever is less at domestic ATMs not owned by us that charge a transaction surcharge. Maximum rebate of $360 for 12 statement cycles. All offers are subject to be withdrawn at any time. Member FDIC, count on Columbia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. And I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Karen Christine Patrick. And today we are interviewing Darcy Tarillion. Karen, are you there?
I'm here. I'm very excited. This is a long-term friend of me and Brett, and our show title is Stirring Up Your ESP with Janet Lessin and Karen Patrick and Darcy Tarillion.
Go ahead and tell us more about Darcy. Yeah, go ahead.
I can do that. I can. Darcy Tarillion is a researcher, practitioner, and experiencer in various fields, such as paranormal investigation, which she's done for 15 years, ufology, world conspiracies, and the psychology behind conspiratorial mentality, esotericism, ancient cultures, mysticism, and the mind-body-spirit complex. The main way in which she views these fields is through focusing on the nature of consciousness itself, which is the underlying theme that connects all aspects of her research. She has been studying and experimenting with technologies discovered and invented by renowned physicist, ufologist Sereda for several years now. These studies include harmonic tuning and electromagnetism primarily. She studies its effects on humans, animals, and plants. The tones and electromagnetism have both practical healing effects, such as cell regeneration, and powerful mystical properties associated with them. She also teaches a 4-part series course on the nature of consciousness and the mind mastery. Consciousness and mind mastery that has its foundation in meditation. The course is usually adapted to what the group wishes to achieve. It is most beloved by participants because the classes are based on real methods and proven science. She has a unique way of combining science and spirituality that is both eye-opening, easily digestible, and very effective. However, her most popular course is how to develop your personal superhuman abilities, such as ESP, telepathy, and mediumship. She finds people learn the most about their own self-sovereignty through knowing that they, as a human being, are truly capable of all of these things. So that is Darcy. Darcy, welcome to Aquarian Radio.
We muted. Hold on.
Hi.
Aquarian Radio.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Can y'all hear me?
We're very happy. We can hear you now. We're very happy to have you on the show. So that's
wonderful.
Your impressive resume. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself that might not be on this bio that we were reading, and about your work, especially your work with David Sereda, who I met many, many years ago at the IUFO Congress?
Oh, yes, I'd love to. It's my favorite topic. One of my favorite topics. That's one of the things I've been doing in most recent years is studying with David. I liked his style. I liked what he was studying at the time. I'll go ahead and rewind and let you know my history with a lot of this. Because we mentioned various topics that I've been involved in the past. when I was younger, I was always interested in the paranormal field, and I did go to Catholic school, and I really didn't feel that so much, and I didn't feel what they were telling me, and, you know, as far as what was being taught in the Bible, and not that it's not true. There's a lot of truth in the Bible, I believe. It's gone through many translations. It's gone through many taking out of books, putting back books in, you know, rewording things, putting different people's perceptions in it. I got to a point when I had a lot of learning disabilities and things like that, so I had to figure out how to do my own work. So it started me thinking on my own when I was young, is the point of that. And so when I started to get my own brain, I wasn't as programmed as the regular population as we would see it. You know, you go to school, you get this education, you know, then maybe you go to college and, you know, the standard thing, you buy a house or you get married or you have kids, whatever. The main thing that gets sold. So that just didn't appeal to me. And so one of the things that, since it's a show about experiencers and experiences, I'd like to mention early on, I was not any kind of brilliant mathematician or anything like that. But in Catholic school, when I was 17, some people will find this odd because there is a lot of focus on this one branch of priesthood, but I was having a lot of difficulties in school with learning disabilities and things like that, and a priest handed me a book. The book of all books he could have handed me was Alice in Wonderland.
Oh,
and I started
wow.
And the reason I'm telling this story is a Jesuit priest. I don't know what he was doing with Alice in Wonderland. And there's history to Alice to the writer. He was a mathematician. His name was Lewis Carroll. He supposedly wrote the book about. He was the dean of I forget what university. I might be telling it a little. I believe he was a dean. But he was supposedly Alice was based on something, so like a real person, a younger person. Maybe it was a dean's daughter. I think that's the story. But it was known that he might have been a pedophile. This guy who wrote this Alice in Wonderland book. And I'm not saying this Jesuit priest was that. I'm just saying they have this. There's a whole history there with priesthood and Catholicism and all that. But anyways, this led to, he gave me this book. I didn't know what his intentions were. However, I had the most spontaneous experience with it. I read maybe 20 pages into it, and I said, man, this book is so mathematical. And they weren't saying anything out of the ordinary. You know, it was like the cartoon you see. It was just very Alice is falling through the hole and Alice is this. There was no reason for me to think this book is mathematical. And 20 pages into it, I knew math spontaneously. I knew it better than some of the best mathematicians. So you could, overnight, you could literally tell me anything about mathematics and I could understand it. And I don't know how that occurred. I still to this day, I don't know what that was about, and I don't know where that priest is. I never told him about it. I don't know if he knew that was going to happen. I have no clue. But that got my attention because after that, I started having. Once you start understanding math at these levels, these hyperdimensional levels, you well, I did. I started having more lucid dreams about formulas, and so this whole, and I didn't know anything about ETs and that ET culture. This was back, I'm 34. This was back when the internet wasn't even that popular. So this, there was no, you had to be in the know of all that to understand ET culture. And so I got into the paranormal world. So I bought myself a little EMF detector, and I didn't even know what an electromagnetic field was, but went and looked it up and, figured it out. I learned I could self-teach almost everything. So I was pretty much self-taught. I tried school a few times, but it didn't work out. So I started investigating this other side of things. I wanted to understand, because in Catholicism, all that's kind of frowned upon, okay? Demons, or, oh, you're getting in trouble with doing the Ouija board, or, oh, you're looking for trouble with calling on spirits, all that kind of stuff. So
right.
It's a whole thing. And after that, I was just getting kind of confused because what I did, I started to make a lot of money. I was not in school, and I'm just going to be honest because it's an honest subject that I'm very open about. I became an exotic dancer, and I learned black markets. I learned how economies worked. I learned how business worked. So it was a very confusing time for me because I had knowledge about the way the world really worked when kids my age were in school or clowning around and all that kind of stuff. So I was putting together a lot of information at a very young age, and I still struggle with that a little bit. People still haven't caught it. I still have older friends, I guess, is my point. But so I had experiences as your regular paranormal experiences of feeling things and seeing things, and the typical kind of ghost hunting stuff. But it was really rough for me because I didn't have anybody to teach me. I didn't have anybody sitting there saying, what do you do? So I said, I wish I had already bought a home when I was 19, and I realized that was a scam. The whole owning a home and, that's your investment. I was like, okay, that's not what life is about. So I said, what if I just got a big sum of money? And then I got this idea. I'm going to just try and pursue the lotto. And I'm going to try to pursue it with my mind. And I didn't know I didn't even know what meditation was. So I looked up a few things, and I found a monastery near my house. And it just so happens that they had just moved there from Taiwan. And I got one-on-one experience for several years. I ended up moving even closer to them to where I could get experience. So it was basically like living at a monastery. I got full-on one-on-one attention from the Buddhist, and these people were more in line with my way of thinking of the world and oneness and consciousness, and I'm like, okay, now you're talking my language. But it still felt a little bit religious-y to me, especially if you've come from something like that. So, because you still have to prostrate. I don't know if people know what that means. It's, the bowing and the
bowing, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have to alleviate your karma in certain ways, and you build merits up, and there's a whole system to it, which the system, it's very ancient, and it was built for a reason, and it's very effective, but we're at the Aquarian age where a lot of methods now are effective. So Ancient ones are too, but now everything's everything. We're in the information age. So I started learning. I started with a very surface deal with this lotto, and I didn't know what I was getting into. I learned more. What is it called? You bite more off than you can chew. So
right.
I learned deeply what meditation, what was involved, the dynamics in meditation. And I was there every day to ask very specific questions about my practice. And most people will do techniques, but they'll just go with the flow and go with whatever organization is teaching or whatever class or whatever they're involved in. And so I was kind of done with that. I went through that, and then my health wasn't so good. I had a bad year with, I had chronic migraines, which is definitely a symptom of people who are sensitive anyways, with ESP and things like that anyways. I was hospitalized for nearly a year. I had a dog bite, and then I got sick with a deadly disease that was in the hospital, and that left me with a lot of time to think. So, and I was immobilized. We're talking spacesuits. People couldn't visit me. It was a whole ordeal.
Oh, my goodness.
So when I got home, I still had in-home care where I was having IVs, and it was a big, big mess. And so all I did is I said, you know what, I'm going to spend these years learning about the subjects that, that I want to pursue, that I deem most important. And so I meditated on that very hard. And I didn't have money, and I want to stress that to people out there. I did not have money. So when I was going into these states of deep meditation and learning new ways to taper it, coming from Buddhism, learning my own techniques and breathing and this kind of stuff, I learned that the information is all inside you. Because I was learning things, and then all I had was my computer, and I would watch something that would validate, or I'd read a physics something or other that would validate exactly what I was thinking. Very, very involved stuff, not mediocre, just fly-by-the-night theories. And so I followed that and knew I was on the right track. And it really got me to this place. I went through a really bad time where I basically went through 2 years of very, very horrific stuff. I was seeing very bad things, full-on manifestations. What they'll do is entities know what if they're intelligent enough and they've been with you long enough, and you're weak, they're gonna know, especially in sleep states, they're gonna get in your mind. So they're gonna know the form to take. They're gonna know what scares you the most. They're gonna prey on you like that. And so you can imagine I was at my weakest state, and this torture went on for 2 years. And I finally found a way to circumvent it, and that was through looking at everything through my third eye. And that happened because of one incident where I almost got taken. And I don't know how to describe that, but the best I can do is something was trying to lock eyes with me, and I knew if I locked eyes with it that I would not exist anymore. And I've talked to David Sereda about incidents like that, and he's had similar experiences about things looking at him and the locking of the eyes and, the hypnotism and all that that's involved in that. So where these courses started, coming in. I got out of that, and I swore to myself if I ever got out of that, got out of this horrible period, that I would just live off the grid. I would grow my own food. I would be as in touch with the earth as possible. Started getting heavy into ascension and what that means, and that's a very rough topic because everybody wants to turn ascension into a cult, and it's not. It's not what that's about. So I was organically on an ascension path, pretty much, and so I just started. I mean, I started teaching it once, so some money fell into my hands, and I just out of manifestation, I figured out how to manifest some stuff. Some money fell into my hands, and I did it. I bought a place out in the middle of nowhere next to a lake, and I grow a lot of my food, and I kind of stay out of the way of everything. But the reason I give you that whole history is because it takes a lot of experience to understand these superhuman ability subjects, the whole ESP topic, which is a superhuman ability. It's really not superhuman, it's just human ability. But we've been suppressed from it for so long that it appears to be a superhuman ability. And I decided that it was not taught the correct way. I had some people. I started to do one-on-one readings, and I found that people, they want to ask about love life, wealth, and whatever the three main things are. And I was like, okay, this is not my thing. So I eventually started working with people with that were a little bit more serious about one-on-one intuitive counseling, and that's what I call it, because a lot of people think, oh, well, if you're psychic, then guess what I'm about to tell you. No, that's not how it works. Actually, the more information you give me, the more I have to work with, because I'm actually fusing with you electromagnetically. Better get, especially if they're in front of you. If you start out in front of a person, it's more effective to do distant healing that way once you've already integrated with them. And so I found that very effective. So I got a lot of practice there, and I got named. There's a couple ghost hunting groups or investigators that they call me the worst case scenario girl, because I only get called in or consulted when it's like really bad. But that's because you have to go through the really bad stuff to know. And so
let me ask you about really bad. What do you
sure.
mean by really bad? You get called in. It's interesting. We have Ghostbusters coming out in a few days. So you're an investigator into what are the really bad things? I'm curious.
Okay, let me put it this way first. I'd like to give this a preface, if you will, on the ground. Think of how small an ant is. No, not even a large ant. Let's make it a really small ant. And you told that ant that there was an ocean he had to cross. Not only is it made of a different substance other than land, it goes miles and miles and miles deep. And then we have an inner earth, more than likely, I believe, where a whole other environment exists. And then you have other pieces of land on on this other side of this sphere we live on. Think of that as what we as human beings look at. Think of us as the ants looking out into space at night. On a starry night, we are these ants, and we can't see the folds. We can't see the other substances. We don't know the quote unquote ocean that things are wrapped around. Not that it's an ocean. This is all an analogy. So, to that ant, that's our Earth is the observable universe. And even more so, if that ant wanted, he could look above him and see that there's a whole other thing that we look at. So, as I gave that a preface, that I'm saying that the subject of really bad stuff is so very complicated and takes so much experience that it's so hard to define. So I would say a very bad incident would be, here's bad to me. Something that has been traumatizing somebody for a long period of time,
Mm-hmm.
Because the longer something goes on, that's when it starts to bleed into your sub-layers and your higher layers of psyche, your lower and higher vibrations. And so these long-term things, stuff that memories that you're born with from your parents or your ancestors, stuff that's followed you down the line, demons, those are bad, man. Those are real bad. They're hard to get rid of because I believe, and in my encounter, that demons, they are from the thought construct, the thought form of religions. I think religions formed those quite some time ago. I think they were something else, and once they found their way into religion, that's why you see different methods like holy water and things like that effective in certain investigations. People think that is proof. Oh, well, that's proof that God does exist, that this, deity is whatever, or that angels are here to save me. No, that's just an aspect of this that you're looking at. You got to be way more open to see the big picture. Bad is also being raped by something you can't see. There was a woman that I was dealing with that was being raped by an entity in the middle of the night, dragged out of her bed to the forefront of her bed. I hope that's not too much for this show. Is that okay to say?
That's okay. It's okay, yeah.
Yeah, so she was, nothing graphic, just, a raping. She was dragged to the end of her bed, and she could not cut loose. The bad stuff is kill you. People think they can't. They can. They can push you downstairs. They can suffocate you. They can take the air out of your lungs. People think that's not a reality. There's good stuff and bad stuff out there, and there's in between. Because the human consciousness has duality in it, there's naturally going to be this good and bad thing. And the good and bad thing, I don't like using the word evil. Evil is a real thing out there, though. But good and bad does exist. That is a reality. But that's not the whole picture. Everybody thinks it's good versus evil. It's not. Everything is just everything. People need to quit labeling everything. It's just things are what they are, and they need to be dealt with how they need to be dealt with. And every circumstance is different. You go to each one of these hauntings or, whatever you want to call them, and they're different, all of them. You've got to have that experience, and you've got to be able to go into yourself or outside of yourself, and you got to know when to do what. And sometimes I don't. I'm still learning as it goes. There's some stuff that's. I consider myself pretty freaking good at this, but there's some people that are better at specific things, and that's how I describe. When I teach my superhuman ability class, people I want ESP, I want psychokinesis, I want this, I'm like, well, okay, guys, these are all art forms. So develop, if you have go ahead.
Well, Darcy, again, one minute. flow of consciousness because you're doing great. But I wanted to two things: give Karen a chance to speak. And are you or Karen? Are you expecting a caller? Because we do have a caller. Karen, are you there?
I'm not. But
yes, I wasn't, but that's okay. We can take one, but you want me to go ahead and speak?
Yeah, you want to make a comment, and then callers, you just want to hold. I think you're going to hold for 12 minutes. Use it when hold. Just a minute, we'll give you the mic, and you can ask a question. Okay, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, my gosh, I was just fascinated what she was saying, because one thing we have in common that I didn't know we had in common, Darcy, is it being a fairly young person with very serious illness. That happened to me when I was 19, and it accelerates your launch into adulthood, because this isn't play. When you're very, very ill, you're now facing one of the great tribulations of any human. I always think about that when I see children in, I used to volunteer at children's hospitals, and I had a daughter who was disabled. So that just is the time you should have like that happen to you. You should have, but I was young, and the other side of that is that people think, oh, you're young, you're healthy, and I was not healthy. I was not even strong. I had about a year of that, but I had like paranormal experiences because I'm just laying there too weak to really move many times, multiple times, and so I'm even too like sick to even want to watch television, read a book, or do anything to keep my mind. Usually I would read, but I was like even too weak to hold a book up, and was hospitalized. I too was in an isolation ward, which is, you just feel like one big giant germ. It's an awful feeling. Everyone's coming in, they're all dressed, they got masks, they got gloves, and you're Typhoid Mary sitting there, It's very uncomfortable, and it kind of smacks you in the face as far as like what you thought life was going to be like, because you're supposed to be running around. Yeah, you're supposed to be running around, having a good time, sowing your oats, learning about life, and here you are smack in a hospital bed, and it really sucks. But the paranormal side, I was in a religious belief system as well, so I just pretty much thought I had a guardian angel with me because there was somebody I was telepathically interacting with. I still think it was like a guiding spirit, but, if I didn't have that, and there was like one moment where I kind of had that, when you're kind of going to the first part of crossing over, there's a letting go of your body, and it's a very euphoric feeling. I actually had no pain. So I don't know if I had a near-death experience, but I had an almost near-death. An almost near, can you say it twice? I had an almost near-death experience, which means I had a choice. I was laying there going, I could either ride this thing out, which is going to take me, close to another year.
How old were you when that occurred?
I was 19.
19, okay. Go on. I just was curious about the age.
Go ahead, Karen. Did we lose you? Karen?
I don't hear her.
I don't hear her. Okay, let's see. She might have got bumped. Let's check. Okay. We'll have to call back in. I think she got bumped. But let me just ask this caller if you have a question.
Okay, sure.
Area code 936. Who do we have here? And do you have a question for our guest? Area code 936. Are you just monitoring us, or do you have a question? Just monitoring us. Darcy and talking again. And
okay.
I will see if I can get Karen back on. She got bumped. All right, isn't that interesting?
So,
okay.
I can't. That Karen is really coming from a very special place with that, because a lot of kids, especially in America, don't experience these kind of hardships early on, and so gaining that different perspective when you're young like that, it just changes everything. And so your viewpoint from that point on in your life, things can be just so confusing, and you're trying to find a path, and there's nobody there to teach it. So, I know some of her personal struggles too, because she's a friend of mine outside of the interview.
Mm-hmm.
But
how did you meet Karen? How did you
Well,
meet?
I'm actually her significant other, Brett. I was friends with him, and he had some very, very progressive ideas about holographic moon theory and all this kind of stuff, which has come a long way since there's been a lot of discoveries in that area with him personally working on it. But I made it I'm not an activist, but I made it a point that I got so angry that that the reality out there was that charities and stuff, all those are nice, but the real people that are going to help us into the next phase of humanity are going to be our researchers. And
right.
I got really angry that, these people are sitting there, they're not getting funded. And so I found Brett's work, and we started talking on the phone. He's just a great person, and I monitored his work for a very long time before I made contact with him, because there's a lot of people out there that can have a lot of theories, but they can't back their stuff up, and he was starting to back his stuff up. So I got to know him, and then later on, Karen, they became a couple, and she added even more to what he was doing. And these things are so important. I mentioned the researcher part and the struggle because these are the people that are going to bring us into the next era, and everybody complains about why aren't their books free or why are they whatever. Well, guess what? Brett's book is free that he wrote. And but most of these struggles, like with David Sereda right now, he has a family, and people don't realize that there's a specific space that you have got to stay in if you are a researcher. You can't go do a 9 to 5 or even 4 hours a day, keep your brain in some other kind of nonsense that pays you pennies, and then go back to your research. It's hard on the mind, it's hard on the soul. So we want to protect our researchers, the ones that are really going after the real information out there. And that's one thing I got disgusted at when I dived into all this information when I was sick in bed and studying everything. I started studying all the conspiracies and the societies and all, everything. And I was like, what? And I knew it was true because I had been on the other end of it. I had worked black markets because I had been a dancer, and I had also, and I want to mention too, there was no, whatever preconceived idea people have about that, there was no prostitution or drug selling or any of that.
Oh, my sister was a dancer. Let's see, she retired at 45. She started when she was 21.
Yeah, it started when I was 19, I guess it was. 18, excuse me. And finally, it was off and on towards the end, but I mean, it was pretty steady for a while. But I got so mad. I bought this house when I was 19 thinking I was doing the right thing, and I was doing everything I was quote-unquote supposed to do, and I started understanding how the Federal Reserve worked, and that's when I started getting into the philosophies and psychology of how the human mind worked with conspiracies, and I studied very deeply into that, and you have to understand how that works to even begin to wrap your mind around cognitive dissonance, which is something I teach heavily in one of my classes. For people who don't know what that is, it's better taught by example. It's when you're so entrenched in a thought belief, nothing can shake you from it. You can have evidence standing right in front of your face, like, oh, my being says that ETs don't exist, and then an ET standing in front of you, and they're going, no. It's because the majority, and there's a majority effect, and there's technical terms for this, but for people who don't know what this is, it's basically the majority decides what to think about something, and usually it's the elite leading the propaganda, and that's how the story begins. And so a whole narrative gets told about who and what we are, and it really messes up our perspective, and it messes up us having our own real experiences, and it starts, you got to get away from that doubting yourself stuff. And in my classes, I hit on that very hard when I'm teaching how to achieve ESP or meditation or whatever class it is we're focusing on. Is first you gotta do meditation. That's going to be your foundation. You got to break your ego. You got to do the deprogramming. You got to realize. And then I don't really, if I don't think the crowd can handle what's really going on out there, they don't need to, because I've taught very simple classes before where all it took was somebody meditating, and they've thrown away all their medication. They've started eating better, and they'll figure it out on their own, because guess what? The information's inside you. You have it all. So you can figure it out yourself. So,
well, I agree. And my husband and I we're not allowed to call ourselves psychotherapists. I won't say that. But, we use hypnotherapy and a lot of psychotechnologies in our counseling practice and coaching practice. And
I believe in all that. I mean, I'm full on technology, if that works. I teach biofeedback to autistic kids or whoever wants to learn, but I have an autism group that I am involved in. So I'm not against psychotherapy at all. I mean, there's merit to it, especially with a lot of, you hear about them on Coast to Coast. There's some really good psychologists out there right now.
Well, let me bring back Karen. Karen,
she's there again. Okay, good.
I fell through the invisible trap door. I don't know where I went.
Well, I wanted to.
So you were saying about your experience with being ill and your time alone with yourself.
And
I know people.
One thing, and then Karen, just one thing about. I was very sickly as a child, and they thought I had cystic fibrosis, and I never thought I would live past 30, and I'm 62. So I kind of relate to that. But go ahead, back to your story.
Oh, yeah, no, just people that go through near-death experiences. My daughter went through a near-death experience and literally expired on the operating table and came back. And that experience, I know we've talked about Ray Hernandez and the Free Organization, but when he first was trying to find out what this UFO thing was about, that was the topic that he delved into. There's something about that near-death experience or being very ill or something that really does set people on a path. And I was just going to, our first talking point question is, what exactly is ESP, extrasensory perception? We have newer words, for that. Those terms change. But since that was the topic of our title, I was just going to ask that question. How do you, Darcy, define it when you're teaching people about it?
So the way that works with me is extrasensory perception. I took on these classes because one by one people were coming up to me, I want to do what you do. And eventually it became, I was going to teach one person, and then it became 5, and then it got to be a thing. So I'm like, okay, now I'm going to teach a class. Wow, I don't know how to address a class. And then I thought, what would I have wanted to know? What would I have wanted to be taught that I didn't know, that I struggled with greatly along this path? And that led me to, what is ESP, which is what you're asking. And I would have to answer that in the way that I teach it. And the way that I teach it is in a 4-part program. And what I do is while you were offline, I don't know if you could hear, Karen. In one of my first classes, I talk about cognitive dissonance, and then I talk about your foundation being in meditation and the different types, and that being a big deal. And I teach what the actual body is capable of. So these hidden sciences that they've been, hiding from us for several, who knows how long. So I teach about how your body is electrical. I got this idea from Quantum Communications. It's a video that you can purchase on Amazon or probably on David Sereda's site. But he simply takes a voltmeter and he connects both ends to the hands, and it shows that your body is electrical, for one. And then I do kind of a hypnosis with people. I first do a body scan because they don't really know what meditation is. So I kind of just do guided meditations, and we do body scans so they can get a taste of what that kind of is. And so I teach while this voltmeter is hooked up to them, that I tell them, okay, I want you to project a really intense thought. Could be good, could be bad. And you'll see the numbers jump up, and you'll see the numbers jump down, depending on the focus. So you have to prove what your body truly is first. So you have to, a lot of this deprogramming, you have to see and experience firsthand. And then, I don't know if y'all are familiar with, like, in the 80s, those plasma balls were real popular, the static balls, where you put your hands on them and it shows the static in them. And do you know what I'm talking about? Hello?
Oh, no, I'm not sure. Is it the ones that make your hair stand on end?
Yeah, they can. But they look like lightning in a bowl, basically. Like
okay. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You put your finger on it, and inside it has lightning.
Those.
Yeah.
So what I do is I teach people their control, and I say put your hands out, and we do other things to kind of get them in a decent control, where they're already relaxed and all that kind of stuff. And we see how far the static starts to gather away from them. And then with thought projection, we try to push energy out of our bodies, and I'll move the ball a little further away, and nothing will happen. And I'll say, think about something that's amped up or whatever, and put it through your palm and just beam it out to that ball. And you'll see the ball start tickling further away. And so all the other people around are watching, they're seeing this with their eyes. And so once you can get somebody to realize that their body physically is capable of more, then you can take it to the next step, where we do really weird experiments where I teach them about cymatics and vibration and how our nerves aren't simply just nerves. People think when someone walks into a room, I'm watching their micro expressions, so I know they're angry, or I just know I feel that they're what. Well, what's happening is their electromagnetic field, which is part of their nerve impulses, they're projecting emotion physically out into the ether in that room. And so you're not just picking up on what you're seeing. You are feeling it. You're feeling their anger. And so once these sort of things get explained, ESP, you realize it is part of who you are and what you are. And so we start to break the ego a little bit more. I have someone sit in a chair in the middle of a circle, and I say, hey, I'm gonna just say what's on top of my head, because DNA is a transmitter and a receiver. I'm just going to blout out information. And I will say, what happened in 1942 in the saloon named gobbledygook, whatever. I'll make something up because I'm receiving it from nowhere, nowhere and somewhere at the same time. and I'll train them. I say you have to have an instant response. And by golly, they'll have an instant response. They don't know where it came from or what. But what that's teaching them is to shut off the thinking mind and start using your autonomic system of ESP that's built into that. And so on these higher levels, the classes go on, but I mean we have it to where by the end of the course, everybody's reading everybody's mind in like a full-on way. You know, picture a room, what's in the room, what colors, full-on. So it's very effective, and it's very exciting for them to see the results. So this whole topic of ESP is what I tell people is it's whatever art you want to focus on. So if you want to focus on mediumship, talking to dead people, whatever your trip is, then, and if you have a propensity towards something that you like, start working on that. And I give people enough information to figure it out on their own how to develop that particular skill. And if I don't know how to develop something particular, I definitely have the resources to point them in the right direction. So that's to give you the long of the there's the short of the long on ESP.
Well, isn't that we have 256 strands of DNA that apparently been shut off by the Anunnaki or somebody, one of our co-creators, and so some of us naturally have those turned on. Some of us can turn it on. It's all about DNA, like we talked about earlier. So I came in very psychic. But of course, the natural inclination, being raised in a religious culture, to criticize me, so I start to shut that down. It's interesting what you're doing. You're actually making it experiential and showing them by that biofeedback system that they're actually doing this, right? And
the validation is so key.
Mm-hmm. It is. And
because you can't, not everybody's going to know about ufology. Not everybody's going to be able to sit in a bed like I did for 2 years and study these subjects thoroughly. So there has to be a way to put all this into context far better than it's being done right now. And so that's what I do. And you can simply, this lady, okay, for example, she was in my neighborhood. She's like, I'm always bored. I live in a beautiful area. Most people, it's a trailer park, but not like a trailer park that you would think on TV. It's got pines all over the place. It's wonderful. I'm like, how on earth are you bored? You could watch, and there's a good Facebook video on this. You could watch birds sit on an electrical wire line, all 4 lines or all 3 lines in different spaces. And what they've done is they've scaled that and mathematically done the measurements. And the way where those birds were sitting plays musical notes if you put it on paper. So what is going on here? This is not what we think it is. And you gotta bring yourself out of that, And so I urge people, look around. The answers are around you. They're all around you. You just got to know how to look. And Brett has an amazing, Brett has an amazing way of doing this. And I knew his stuff was correct because I had already started to see things that way a while back, and he just exponentiated my whole theories on all of it. So, but and then you have people like David Sereda. It's funny. I was watching David Wilcock is interviewing the Corey Good show right now.
Corey Good,
and
yeah,
and I've been watching it. I like to keep up with what's being fed to people, and I try to keep out of cosmic drama because really, whatever, it's going to take care of itself. But you have to fix yourself. That's what's going to fix things. So, but he had William Henry on, interestingly enough, not too long ago, and I was like, he should have William Henry on, and then the next episode he was on. But anyways, one of the topics in the last one they did was artificial intelligence, AI ascension versus organic ascension. And I've had other people ask me about this. And I say as long as you don't get carried away, you need to know the manual way it works. But if you need to exponentiate the process, there are ways to do that. And I teach a class on that too, how to, if you need help, if you're stuck, biofeedback's great. If you're willing to try drugs, I don't recommend that, just because, number one, the con I have about drugs, meaning like peyote and things like that, ayahuasca, the popular
stuff. Well, that's a category called entheogens, which is different than just drugs. So you're talking about entheogens, which is towards God, it's opening us to higher levels of consciousness, and there's others that take you to the dark side of the force.
Yes, exactly the point. Exactly the point. You can't. What I tell people is, it'll definitely open you up. And if you're in a rut and you really want to get somewhere, and you want to take that risk, it doesn't protect you from the bad stuff. You're going to see it all.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, you'll see some good stuff, and you won't have to deal with all that other stuff. But you're not protected. So, that's where I stand on a lot of that.
Right. I think it's really good if you have a shaman, but if they're non-specific inhibitors, so if you're in a dark space, you might get more dark. But it could, bring you through to the light, to a higher level of awareness. So kind of like going through the dark night of the soul. So people do these things and they go to a party, but that might not be what their soul's seeking. The soul might be seeking to go through the dark side to come out the other side, and there you are in a party, and then people say, well, I had a really bad experience.
No, right.
These aren't party drugs. These are shamanic tools. These are sacred medicines, and you're not treating them with this respect that they deserve.
Correct. Correct. Anyway, and Graham is very good about, trying to propagate that thought and that understanding, and kudos to him for that. If you're going to do it, then do it. But since I practice with David Sereda, I can't dabble in all that, and I have a 1-year-old. So
right.
But I do want to talk about. I'll let anybody chat about anything, but before we run out of time, I would love to talk about my experiences with David Sereda. That's one thing I would definitely like to mention before we're off air.
Okay, we do have an hour and 2 minutes left. Karen, do you have any questions? And then we'll go to Darcy talking about her experiences with David Sereda.
I appreciate her mentioning the work with Brett. I would say Brett is a bit ahead of his time, because what he's kind of doing.
Yes, he is. yes.
He's
sorry, I'm probably not supposed to say that.
No. He's an acquired taste as far as his work, but and I've learned a lot from him. What he's basically doing is he's looking at all kinds of pictures, but primarily NASA photos. And instead of just seeing artifacts and anomalies, he's one of the best anomaly hunters around, I have to tell you, unrecognized. We have people that take his work all the time and don't acknowledge him. But the main thing that he's been able to do, and it's a very weird time travel story, is that he was shown his work from now back when he was 15. If people want to check out that very unusual story, you can find the book at tinyurl.com/space-art-ebook. tinyurl.com/space-art-ebook. It's a free book. Basically, he's able to look through the layers, and his eyes actually turn red. It's really weird. He's able to look through layers like if it was a transparency with different layers, like the Invisible Man. You could see his lungs and his skin and his, skeleton.
Yes,
and he sees all kinds of stuff, and it's catching. And now it's happening to me, but I'm telling you, when you start to do a lot of this kind of work, You start to have it come in your dreams just before you go to sleep. You have entities trying to get your attention, and particularly a group of entities called the moonlings, which are like extra-dimensional beings that live on the moon. The moon is inhabited by both, like I believe we have a space station there, I believe. It's like Babylon 5. There's a lot of races there. I also believe some of the entities there are interdimensional. But it's like where you live in this quantum hologram, and it's a very crowded quantum hologram. We're not the only thing, that's happening. And I believe that he's like the head of the trail. He's like scouting out the road down the road, and that pretty soon we're now getting people that are also having this experience and coming back.
I told Brett when I first met him, he was so confused. He's like, I don't know where I am in all this, meaning ufology and all of it. And I said, Brett, look, there's going to come a time and a place when your work is really important. So just keep on with it. And, he would have good days and bad days. And I'd tell him, your work is for disclosure, it's for before disclosure, but trust me, it's a timing issue with you. And the timing has finally occurred. It finally happened. And I think a lot of that timing had to do with Karen coming on stage, because she had a lot of the history to put to the puzzles that gave him the encouragement that he's not crazy and there is a place to go with what he's seeing. Because it's one thing to have fun with walking outside and seeing all the different layers, because I used to just think everything moved. Everything vibrates to me. And I had to learn, I just learned that like a few years ago, that my best friend makes fun of me. She's like, I tried this, I shouldn't say on air. She tried something and it made stuff move. And she was like, man, and the towel was, I was like, wait a second, so the towel's not moving right now? So it's fun to, see all this kind of stuff and go out there and see all the layers, but where does it lead at the end of the day? Where's your purpose with it? And everybody wants to have a purpose, and I told Brett, your purpose is coming, man. It's with your timing. It's going to happen, because I've been in the picture. I've gone deep into these timelines. I've watched it all play out. There's many ways it could go, and Brett's in pretty much all of them. So because he's able to manipulate between the timelines.
Absolutely.
And I think while you were off air, I had mentioned the whole spatial issue. I was talking about researchers needing to stay in that space in their head, and they can't be worrying about jobs and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if people realize that there is actually a do not work list, just like there's like a do not fly list, There's a do not work list, and not only is it somewhat enforced by, like, our government often interferes with people. It had to happen to me, but it's also enforced on, like, an etheric level, because it's like you've got to stay on your task. And our current work paradigm tries to suck our whole brain out of our head, Our whole monetary system tries to say the only thing you should be doing all the time is thinking about how to make money. And that's like the now paradigm. The future paradigm is not about that at all. And we're in that transition between the two, right? Right,
Yeah, I totally try to live in future mentality as much as I can. Reality beckons at times, but for the most part, I try to really keep people out of my life that are focused on the money trip. I try to just, I know that is a agenda, and so and I'm not saying we don't need money to live. Eventually we won't, but it takes money to get out of the mess. So, we will eventually, live in smaller societies and, live in our own little communities and grow what we need to and eat what we need to around our area that's correct for our bodies and, all that kind of stuff. And, but it's exactly what you're saying. Sorry, I have to hang on one
Oh,
second.
no, you're fine.
I have to plug my phone. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just get so excited about these subjects, and to hear. I don't get to talk. I live in the country, and I don't get to talk to people except via internet, and that's usually typing. So it's a treat for me to.
Oh. I understand.
Talk to people.
Janet and I on this show have had a number of shows talking about the changes that need to happen in our monetary construct, for instance, like the basic income guarantee. Also bring in all this technology. Literally, I'm with you. I'm brokenhearted of people who've given up technology that would turn water into fuel just by changing your spark plugs. I mean, I know all these people that are sitting there with fantastic ideas, but they've literally been kept out of the market. They're on that do not work list because the powers that be have a consumerist, scarcity mindedness, and this is the turn of the screw between scarcity mindedness. With money counts scarcity. If you have enough of everything, if you have an abundance, you don't need little markers to measure it out. And we're going to have to go through, I think, this period of time where we're going to have to be doing without or feeling kind of tight, because we've got to change from this idea that we've got an abundance already. People don't realize it, but when the Internet came online and we have this abundance of information, I remember the old days in the library with the card catalog, trying to find information, and it's in your pocket. Brett is like Luddite. He's the Amish guy on the information highway in terms of smartphones. And he took his daughter's smartphone to look up something. I took a picture of him using her smartphone. It's like seeing Bigfoot. It's very rare. But but he's that whiz on that basic computer stuff. But that's the thing is new information, as they know in chaos theory. New information coming into a system will change the system, and that's what we've got. We've got new information pouring in through portals of people like you and me and David and Janet and Sasha and all these people on this show. Our books, whatever we're able to get out, is a new information in the system, and it's a real aha moment when you just suddenly think in your head how easily we could go to free energy. It's just a thought form away. It's just thinking, oh my gosh, this is real, let's make it happen. It's like a snap of a finger. Even though we've had this, paradigm for this long. Go ahead, Janet.
We've had this model of the alternative energies for 50 years, if you look back at the whole history of Star Trek and Star Wars. We already have the model. I don't think it would be hard for us to go from this paradigm right now, where we're in this level 0 civilization, to advanced civilization where we're space-faring, and we have technologies green, and we have world governments. All these things have been modeled to us by Star Trek and Star Wars and a lot of our science fiction. Move away from the ones that have the, Independence Day scenarios where it's some kind of destructive energy coming in and wiping us out, but to the models where we are in cooperation, no matter what species we are, race, color, creed, planet of orientation, etc., and just actually embrace it and live from it. And there we go. It's like the Berlin Wall coming down. Those who were there during that time never thought they'd get out from the Berlin Wall, or at least not for, more than a short vacation. I was talking to a young woman when I was in the Canadian conference just last week, 2 weeks ago, and she had been raised behind in Poland, where they weren't allowed to travel. They were not allowed to go anywhere. And so her parents escaped and took her to Canada through Germany first. And it's like, wow, this woman's 34 years old, and she knows what it was like to not have that basic kind of freedom of, being behind this communist society that wouldn't let her travel to other parts of the world. Now we're doing a lot better, but, at the same time we're getting worse. And we still have the models, and all we need to do is, like you said, Darcy, live from it, embrace it, realize that it's a possibility, imagine it. Where do you think it's imagining? When you imagine something, where do you think it comes from? And, pull it into your psyche, your consciousness, and live from it. And more of us do that, the more rapidly we create this evolution of consciousness and this new existence, which we've all been waiting for. We know about it. 50 years of Star Trek, we know about it. Let's bring it on.
I agree. I mean, it'll be a bumpy adjustment, but the people that have been knowing about it are ready for it, and those are the people that are going to be the leaders of that occurring. So what's the big deal? We've already got pretty much our leadership in place, which it won't be a quote-unquote leadership society, but for people to pave the road to make it a little simpler, like, okay, we know what's going on, here's what's happening. I'm going to wait till this car passes, sorry. So, and those are our researchers. Those are our people in our small communities. Keep an eye out for who's good at what. It's the little things you can do on a daily basis. Who's good at what? Who's gonna? I mean, just paying attention to your earthly existence is a huge part too. And if you have children, teaching them a new way, but not in a stiff way, but not in a not in a relaxed way, but just right, and just let things be. Let people experience what they're going to experience, and we'll get past this. We will, because Earth has been through many, many, many changes over many, many, many millennia, and so we'll get through. And like when Brett and I talk, him and I have had a lot of conversations about, there's nothing really for me personally to fear. I don't fear, like, I'm going to die from this. I'm getting into prepper mentality. I mean, I like that kind of stuff just because it's inventive and, I just like growing things and, living off the land, but just not have fear-based thoughts. Another thing I teach in class, you have any kind of fear-based thoughts, and I have to practice what I preach because everybody has fear. If you're a human being, you're suffering, and you're going to have fearful thoughts. The suffering comes from the fear, and it's definitely what we were taught in Buddhism, unless you're a truly enlightened being like a Buddha, or you've gone through rainbow body or something special. you're just and even like David Sereda, who's attained light body and can do amazing things. He can sustain it for a while, but he's still a normal guy, in the daytime or when he's not meditating. He'll tell you that straightforward. So, it's just a matter of embracing. I hate using the word spiritually, but, who you are spiritually, and then what your relationship is with the outside and the adjustments that are occurring currently, because it's already happening.
So tell us more about your work with David Sereda.
So,
Karen.
I'm sorry, did you prompt Karen?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I can't. I didn't hear that. Sorry. So I got interested in his work because I went to the first Contact in the Desert. Well, I had seen some of his videos and I was interested in him before Contact in the Desert, but then I went to his actual workshop and I experienced his wand. He has a wand, he calls it, and it produces electromagnetic energy through it, and you can pulse that. He has figured out how to he's figured out that everywhere in a body, like a planet or a star system or things like that, they have a frequency, just like Earth has Schumann resonancy. Nikola Tesla measured it too, but they happen to use Schumann's name. But Earth has its own resonancy. So do the planets. So do different star systems. So he's gotten this, NASA information, and he's converted it into a device that uses electromagnetic energy and can pulsate it through you. And he also takes formulas, not formulas technically. I mean, he has to scale things and things like that, but he does phi ratios, primes. He does other things like that. It's not just planets and star systems, infinity numbers, things like this. And so you can experiment. He had this great discovery about, without revealing a lot of his work from before. I never know what I'm allowed to say or not allowed to say, because he's been cheated in the past, and money needs to go to him. But there's a certain number that he discovered a while back concerning the Great Pyramid, and that's also one on there. And so I've been experimenting with this device for a while. I had to save up for it for a year, because it's not, you have to buy. It's like $1,300 or $1,500, and then you have to buy the amp, which is, $200 or $300, depending on what amp you get. And I did this through pregnancy too, by the way. But I pulsated these frequencies, and the idea is they can be healing, so you can heal. I mean, the list goes on with what he's been able to work with people: urinary tract infections, bone stuff. Rice is on there now. I mean, just the list goes on. I'm trying to think of stuff. I put it for pregnancy, just to make sure the pregnancy the growth would work right, and also to get the child used to the frequencies, because I was going to use them through her life. So I've used different frequencies on her too, though. Star systems for and then another one, Lyme's disease. I'm sorry, I'm getting. Give me 1 second. I just need a glass of water, because I live in Texas and it's really hot here.
Oh yeah.
Let me get my glass right quick.
Ditto, New Mexico. I'm not too far from it.
Okay, I got my water. My mouth was getting dry, and I'm skipping over words and losing track of my thoughts. And this is important stuff I'd like to tell you about. 1 second. Okay. So, wish I could have explained that part better, but I wasn't refreshed on it. So, anyways, but you can read about any of this. He has a lot of videos on it. So I've experimented with the wands with plants. I'll grow indoor plants, stuff you can sow indoor first and then plant outside. So I've done sweet potatoes. I've done lantanas, sprouts. David's done sprouts. He's upped his with Palladian frequency. So the idea is either you eat them and you get an effect, okay? Or I've noticed the growth rate is different. One is healthier than the other one whenever I do this. And, I have my controls, and then I have them far enough away from each other and proper placement and everything. So there's obviously something going on here just when you use the simplest of life form. I say plants are simple. They're not. Let me just retract that. They're very intelligent, but just they're not the human body is what I'm getting at. So with that being said, I didn't purchase it to heal anything. I purchased it because I wanted to see the mystical effects of it. And oh my gosh, I have had so many experiences, and he encourages people to share with him and write in a notebook, because this is new to him too. You know, he's doing it too. Everything's new, and his partners are his wife. There are certain projects. It's his wife. The toning course, which I'll get to in a minute, is his father, Lynn Sereda, Crystal Sereda, his wife, and him. I'm basically a student, a friend. I share my experiences with them. Sometimes we bounce ideas off of each other. I help him. I just help any way I can. But we have a lot of dialogue about a lot of different things. And the deal is so the second year, this is when I was so entrenched in studying all those things when I was sick. I went to Contact in the Desert the second year, and this is when I saved up for my wand, and I got it, and he's like, okay, you got to do it for 30 days, and I'm like, but Contact in the Desert is in 30 days. Should I bring it? And he's like, it's very hard to bring, and it looks kind of like a bomb, so it's hard to, like a pipe bomb, so it's hard to get through. It's like it's a casing of a mag flashlight. So it's hard to get through an airport. So, but I got it through, and I demoed it after he did his lecture there. He did it Skype. He did his lecture Skype that year from Contact. He was there in person the first year, and then Skype the second year. I don't believe he participated the third year. But it's funny because I got to hear. People thought I was a presenter. They thought I was a somebody, and I was a nobody. You know, I'm just this person with a wand that has experiences, and I'm, you know, all of a sudden, people are asking me how to do tech stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, I'm not. This is, I'm not that. I learned a lot from those people. That was my point in saying that. I got to meet a lot of people that were already using the wand. We fixed a lot of problems with that inherently because some people didn't have the right idea how it worked, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to explain how my relationship developed with Sereda and how we got to trust each other. So we got to talking more about tech issues, and I started helping just on mild stuff, helping people set up stuff, or if someone had a question about something and they felt they could defer to me, they would start asking me questions. And so I help them out in those ways. But I will, let me say, disclaimer, I am not a tech. I am not anything special. I take his course right now, which is mind-blowing, but I'm going to get back to two examples of something that happened with the wand. I've heard voices with the wand in the morning after pulsating certain star systems. I've heard people call my name. Did not feel like ghost or anything like that. I have had a huge breakthrough in I'm going to give you a really good example right now. You're going to love this, guys, and I think your listeners are going to really like this too. I have this written down. David has a new book out that he made, a really huge discovery in, and I'll briefly go over that in a minute, but I want to read something. This is really important. Talk about perspective. Okay. This is just an excerpt from his book, his new book. This is David Sereda's book. You can buy it at davidsereda.net. It's a PDF on his website. It's $11.11. And there's one part that I really like about this. It says, numbers may be the single most misunderstood science of all. This is because the base units of measurement vary so greatly, and this variance does not translate from one base to another with absolute perfection. A unit of measure is a human's consciousness first attempt at the sacred, meaning what and who and all the real answers, to understand and record the structure of what human consciousness can perceive as the one universal language, math as a number theory. Math and measure transcend word and its variant meanings. It is an attempt to understand the universal language. The way we measure and the units we measure with have varied from ancient times to modern times in an evolving base counting system. Each base gives us new insights into time, energy, motion, structure, physics, and architecture. With that being said, I just want to let that resonate with everybody for a minute. Do y'all understand what was just said? It means that he's saying that really only frequency and ratio are the things that are truly universal. Because in his new discovery, he's realized that the pyramid has been measured wrong. The sacred of sacreds has been measured wrong, and it's by just a minute amount. And you can look that up on his coast-to-coast interview for your audience. It was a couple weeks ago. You would just look up David Sereda probably on YouTube if you don't have it Insiders, if you don't pay monthly to go to the archives. So with that being said, this is the example I was going to give you. So I'm having difficulties with my amp right now. So I was listening to the audio version of Primes, and just the audio, listening to it on my headphones, I wasn't getting the electromagnetic treatment from the wand. I said to myself, this is why we don't understand primes. If people out there know anything about math, primes are a mystery. They seem random. No one's figured out a formula with them. People think they've come close. But I had an experience with the wand several months ago where I saw DNA, and I had this whole prime thing, and I went deep into this lucid dream where I saw a lot of different things connecting. And after reading that, I said, that's why they're not, and I could be totally wrong, but this is where it brought, these are the kind of thoughts that this wand helps me with, is my point. It helped me understand that they're random because we're putting them into our number line. They work at a higher dimension, and I told David that. I said the ETs in the dream that I had told me that primes work differently at different dimensions, at different, the word wasn't dimension. When an ET's talking to you, it's just understood. There's context to it already built into it. It's not really words, so it's hard to. And when you come out of the dream, you're like, how do I put that into words? You know. But that's a good example of where these, this electromagnetic experiments can take you. And I had another experience that's really crazy where I went to the convenience store to buy my lotto ticket that I do every, it was Wednesday at the time. And my car is very distinct, and I live in a very secluded area. The gas station's gravel. I park at the same place, get the lotto, and leave. And I have a hubcap that's different than the rest of the ones on my car. So, and I also dress very different. I look like people in my neighborhood call me Aunt Jemima. I've got my wrap on my head, and I look very different than the countryside that I live in. So you would notice me is the point.
Uh-huh.
So I walk and this guy inside, the clerk at the counter, he's acting weird, and he's kind of following me around the store a little bit and acting catty and a little bit more friendly than he does normally. And he's like, well, why'd you leave and come back? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you left and came right back. I walked outside. You walked out of your car. I know your car because of the hubcap. And you looked at me and you turned around and you left. And that never occurred. So David and I were just scratching our heads like, how did a double get created? So I forget what I was pulsing at the time. I was doing the wand pretty heavily at that time, but it made the clerk really uncomfortable that we actually stared at each other for a good while I was purchasing the lotto ticket. And then not only that, I get home and I purchased the 5 numbers. It's a 5-number lottery. I guessed 4 of them, but he had told me that the time ran out. It didn't run out. The time was still good when I was in there. And so I argued with him for a bit. He's like, nope, the computer's closed out, the lotto's closed. And when I went back home, sure enough, when lotto was called out at 10 at night, which is when they do it here, I had 4 numbers.
Wow.
So just bizarre stuff like that, you know. So the wand is definitely something worth experiencing. He has pendants that all this stuff is about harmonizing the body and harmonizing your environment and optimizing all of your experiences. He's all about the experience. His latest one is based on a dream he had. This book that he wrote that's going to probably rewrite history on his discovery with God's Great Pyramid is the name of the book. There's just purchase the book, audience. That's all I'm saying. It's one of the best books I've ever read because the math is so unbelievable. And it's so hard to get all of the math correct. And you know this once you've read it because, you know, he'll openly say, either I'm going crazy, you know, God wrote me this letter in this dream and told me that I had to figure this out and I had to do with Noah's Ark and stuff. And he'll openly admit, like, either I'm crazy and the math will work out, or I try and it works out perfectly and then I'm not crazy. Well, guess what? He worked the math out and it's perfect. So speaking of experiencers, I mean, this man totally goes off of his experience. He knows what's going on in the world. He knows his heart very well. He's been meditating 36 years. He's a great meditation teacher. His course is fantastic, which is I don't know if y'all are familiar with HemiSync and things like that. It's nothing like that, but it's something maybe your audience might relate to. But he does lectures and then he teaches toning, which is he discovered a lost scale that's basically has almost no oscillation in it, and you match your voice to it until the tones get too high eventually. It's a 3-year course, and it's very much so worth taking, and it's very real. You know, he's just sitting there at his house. You can hear kids in the background. He's just talking, you know. So that's real life. That's, you know, you don't have to be, he's a professional, but he's also a real person doing something real, doing real discoveries. And I can't say good enough things about him other than experiences, movies, his website, because that's had a huge effect on my life. And just, he's a big part of why I even have a child now, because there was a lot of doubts I was having about having a child. And that's a weird experience in and of itself, because I've been with my partner for 12 years, and we've never had any kind of oopses or any kind of that stuff. We've done the same thing, and I decided I'm going to live this different life, move out to the country, and he didn't come with me. And I started this is when I first started using the wand, and I got heavily into it, and I harmonized my body, and I was instantly pregnant. And this has not only happened to me, he's now had other people that this has happened to that have had pregnancy issues that have gotten pregnant using the wand. So, anyways.
There you go.
What I'd like to say about David Sereda. I wish I could say more, but I want to hear what y'all have to say.
Okay, Karen.
Oh, yeah, I was listening because with the numbers you're talking about, frequencies, and I have number dyslexia. They call it dysnumeria and dyscalculia, and there was something wrong. I'm getting A's and then like D's. In math. I just couldn't get the symbols confused me. I'd switch them back and forth, and I wrote all my numbers backwards, and I was just very confused. And I started, I didn't realize it at the time, but I started a process of just sitting with the concept, not trying to do the computation because I was getting confused. Was just kind of sitting with the concept. And pretty soon I had like visions and dreams, and I was able to overcome my problems and go all the way to Calculus 3 and learn about fractal numbers and things like that. And to me it's kind of miraculous, but I think I was using that, like you said, everything's inside. And when you open up your intuition, you can overcome a lot, because if everything's inside, we're so oriented to the belief system of looking outside ourselves for the answers. But we're a fractal of the whole universe. We're a whole and a part. That's what a fractal is. It looks, it resembles the whole, but it's in a whole complete part that can function on its own. I
agree. That describes holographic theory. That's the basis of what you're saying, and I couldn't agree more. I also believe in an electric universe. That's a far more substantial theory that stands than any other that I've come up with to date. And David has pushed me more in that direction, not verbally, but just watching his math. I'm more prone to think that way now too.
Yeah, one of my mentors was A.R. Borden. We'll be talking about him in a week from now when we talk to Michael Lee Hill, who did the music for David Sereda's movies. It's a small little club. We're not sure how we joined it.
Oh, my goodness.
The idea of an idiomaterial universe. And what's interesting is, I explain it this way. When you see Shrek, from the movie Shrek, right, the ogre, running through the forest, he's a mathematical construct within a mathematical construct. So the forest is a mathematical construct, and as a character is a mathematical construct. And every time he moves, his feet and arms, formula. And the thing is you can look at the numbers if you know what you're looking at, or you can look at what it has produced. But behind what you see, him running through the forest, is a bunch of numbers. And the numbers are frequencies in our particular brand of the universe. And the more we know about holograms, the more we've been learning about hologram theory, the more we've turned around and looked, kind of when they had the fancy clocks, 1800s, they suddenly looked at the clockwork universe. Now that we have developed electricity and all these inventions from electricity, and now hologram theory, and I always tell the story of my grandmother who was there before there was movies, before there was everything. And one of the last things we did, she had a cell phone and she used it for emergencies. And right behind her at the cell phone store was a 3D television. I'm like, oh my! I started thinking about silent movies she watched and then color movies. I'm like, oh my gosh, Grandma's got to do this 3D thing. And I said, Grandma, come over here and look at this 3D television. She says, I don't want to see any more things on television. So she was kind of done with the whole progress. It was very funny. But that's the thing is we now are going to have, Microsoft has, where you look with these goggles and you can see a hologram within your environment. I mean, the further we get down that line of thought, the more we look at our universal construct, and we realize that it's the energy construct, it's the electric universe, like you said, and that.
And guess what? Once you get further down with that thought, then you're more evolved. Then you're at a higher frequency, and then the whole thing switches again, turns into another model. So I've experienced this. This is the main way ETs talk to me. They talk to me in lucid dreams. That's where I get my formulas from. Well, my attempted formulas. It's very hard to retain information that they give to you that you ask for. Sometimes I don't even ask for it. But I've been told how they lifted stones. I've been told all kinds of stuff in my dreams. But yeah, you know, this hyperdimensional place, or whatever you want to call it, there's many different names and definitions people are going to go by, but it you know, then it turns into another model, and then what do you build from that? You know, you build a different kind of spaceship, or you build, or you're building on whatever other dynamics are working through that filter that human consciousness has going on, that collective consciousness. Because I've seen that, you know, if you're stuck and you're not really ascended, I mean, like to a really, really holy place, there's going to be common consciousness throughout the many stages you go through. So the models are just going to keep on getting more complex, more simplified, then more complex. And right now, I'd say they're pretty much they're pretty high in their complexity, and we're coming to an age where we're putting a lot of things together. I tell people in class, you know, we're in the information age, and just in the lifting of the veil placement of where we are in our galaxy, in our formation. That's part of. Sorry, hold on. I'm trying to do two things at once with having a kid. So hold on.
The information age is just finding out everything's information. It's information that is expressing itself as material objects. It's like if Shrek picks up something, he thinks it's material to his hand or whatever. He picks up a stick or something, but it's still all math. It's still an idiomaterial. I mean, there's ideation or ideas or thought forms or mathematical forms.
It's a tool its consciousness is an attempt to try to understand the sacred math is, measurement math. And it's depending on what stage you're at. If you're studying ancient stuff, then there's going to be discrepancy because that was a different growth period. So, like I said, you know, we're at this galactic, we're in this space, you know, where a lot of unveiling is going on, and a lot is emerging in terms of answers, and a lot's coming to people, and it's coming to, I don't know who did the multiples effect study, maybe one of y'all might know, where a lot of people around the world will have the same idea or invention at the same time. But a lot of that's going on right now, too.
Yeah. Well, Rupert Sheldrake studied that in the morphogenetic field, but that's been studied by a number of people, where, when something's ready to be born into our materiality, it seems like several people get the idea at the same time, or even different aspects of the same idea. And it's just that thing is ready to materialize. And I think we're going to have like this rubber band effect. Like, you know how you pull a rubber band, you pull it, and it gets, you know, and we had rubber band fights in my house. It was a lot of fun. But farther back you pull it, of course, the farther you pull, it flew through the air. And that's the thing, is that we've kind of been stuck in a shared reality that's pretty limited, and we've been forced to be stuck in it through religion, politics, our educational system, Now they're throwing all kinds of exotic stuff at us, like stuff in our food, stuff in the air, and everything else. I just think
they're not going to beat nature, is the thing.
No.
The people holding us down, they've been with very, very high technology, with this grid over the planet, over the heliosphere, all of it. I mean, they can't, we're still they can't prevent us from moving, they can't. I mean, maybe they can.
Right.
Maybe this whole guardian ETs but it's pointless. Again, that's getting into cosmic drama, because when you work on ascension, and I hate using that term because it's so freaking overused now, but when you work on ascension, which is just hiring your vibration to turn on your light body, get your astral body, and your light body, you are in a place where you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, because it takes care of itself. As long as you take care of yourself and you're harmonious inside, that is going to reflect on the harmony in your environment. And so it is so important to work on the harmony inside. Don't stress yourself out about the harmony outside. I wonder if so and so's doing okay. I wonder if I need to go visit so and so. Why hasn't so and so responded to me? It doesn't matter. Find the harmony inside. Don't worry about who's engulfing us and trying to keep the veil down, because it's going down. I mean, there's evidence of it. We're learning it. We're seeing it. Disclosure's already happening. Some of my points that we were talking about that we were going to discuss is disclosure, and I already believe disclosure's happening. It's not an important subject. It's important. Okay, it's an important subject, but I'm just saying it's going to happen regardless of what we do, because there's enough people right now working on their harmony.
What do you mean by what makes you think it's happening, and what do you mean by it?
Well,
what do you think is happening? What is it?
I know what I watch. Let me rephrase this. I observe very carefully in my classes how quickly and what kind of questions, and I also feel people's energy in my class, and I read their minds, and I watch all that taking place, for one. That's one example. And it's much that it would have never been that easy 10 years ago or 20 years ago to make people go 4 classes and achieve what they did. And it's not because I'm some freaking excellent teacher, okay? I can teach it well, but I'm not. It's not me. It's them. And then I'm also watching this war happen in the sky. Chemtrails. I'm watching different countries fight. Because I listen to the Alex Jones stuff. I listen to the all the alternative news. Anything you mention, I'm listening to it, and I'm collaboratively putting all of it together, because I don't go towards one mentality. I meditate on it and I put it all together, and it's happening so quick with what people are learning and how, and the fact that the internet has taken off like it did, the fact that people are openly talking about UFOs like they are now. They're putting shows on TV now that they wouldn't normally put on or get away with. There's so much, and the stuff that the researchers are coming out with and being taken seriously about. That's the biggest thing I think that's going on right now, is the marrying of the science and the spirituality. That's huge. People are being taken seriously now, whereas before they would have been laughed at a few years ago. They would have lost their jobs or their tenure. So that's there's huge examples all around us. You see monkeys and lions jumping on each other and being friends. I mean, the bounds are just breaking. Everybody's just kind of seeing this as one big thing, which is what it is. It's oneness. It's singularity.
Yeah, you can tune into YouTube and watch hours of species that normally would be eating each other, and they're just playing with each other.
I know. I mean, what's that all about? So, I mean, there's
pack of lies.
There's a lot of bad stuff, too, that is evidential that things are changing as well. You see a lot of it. And another thing is the weather tampering. That's another evidence that these different fractions are at war with each other. I do believe that. Because I watch... There's different factions of the elite or cabal, whatever you want to call it, the bad guys. There's evidence in negative. You see them fighting against each other, where when it was all under control and they had us under control, they weren't doing any of this stuff. So they're pulling out more weather geoengineering, or they're pulling out big guns. I mean, I hear they have stuff that can go down and penetrate stuff way deep into the earth that affects things that on the other side of the I mean, there's this. Here's the thing. If you've been in the black markets like I have, down in the deep, I was also a professional gambler, so I ran around with those guys. When you start to see $1 million hands being played and that becomes just normal, you're going, okay, money is not what I think it is. But when you've seen enough of that, you start to understand really any amount of technology or really anything, behavior modification, whatever, any of that is possible if you have the right amount of money thrown at it. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going on right now, throwing money around. And that's one thing, that's not to get off subject, but that's one huge theory I have. I've been watching the offsets of money. I mean, there's the surface issues of money being, just printed and it's all fake and the real, the real story that everybody knows. But I've been watching them just move huge amounts of money around for apparently no reason. And they're not hoarding it. They're sending it somewhere. And in my opinion, I think that they're throwing money at gigantic projects to win this both interstellar war and interplanetary war. So there's an Earth war going on. There's stuff going on interstellar, and then there's stuff on other planets going on. So, that's just my intuition of what's going on with this secret war. Everybody thinks that the world's just we're gonna come to art. I mean, we're definitely in some kind of end times, whether that's a new beginning or whatever that means. But some people think, it's going to be people dying or people, whatever, that may be the case. I don't know. But I really
what do you
just
think
see
about the monetary system? Do you think that I was interviewing George Green on Tuesday, and he said that we're going to have a big monetary collapse, which is, he's not the first one that said that. But it's getting really close.
Hey, when was he predicting that? Well, I haven't seen his stuff lately.
I just
he's saying it's happening currently.
But
he's saying the collapse is happening.
Brexit was part of it. Brexit was a major part. It was one of the signs one of the road signs that they were given years ago is the breakup of the European Union.
I think that was in the works for a very long time.
I don't understand it enough. I don't pay that close attention to it. And then someone said something about the Black Knight UFO, the satellites that's been up for thousands of years. You've seen that one.
Yeah, they've been knowing about that for a long time.
Right. I was just meeting with someone who said that there's a message that was translated. I'm looking at it on YouTube. Our home is Epsilon Booties, which is a double star. And there's signs of life, and there's UFOs coming out of it.
So it's translated from the Black Knight? Am I hearing that right?
It says that our home is Epsilon Booties, which is a double star. He just told me about this. I met him for lunch, and then I can't listen to it because we're live, and we've got about 5 minutes left.
Well, I can't say that it came from the Black Knight, but I do believe we're in a binary star system. I can say that with my own research.
Right. Well, Nibiru is probably around, Nemesis, which is binary, round dwarf star of Solaris. So, I mean, that's part of what we're discussing on our show.
It's tough because there's been so many studies about Nibiru that most people are either labeling it a sun or a planet X, or so they're basing their research on a different definition of what it actually is. So they're calling a different thing. Like when I was a bartender when I was really young, people would come ask for a shot of whatever, and I'd be like, "What's that?" And they'd tell me it has blah 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 in it. I was like, "Oh, that's a da 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 da." It had a different name. So there's definitely some confusion with Nibiru and all that. So I'm always careful when I hear news about that. I'm also careful about Sitchin and his research, just because two of my more favorite researchers have some very good information in both directions about that narrative. So some and there's I don't think people realize how big of an industry disinformation is. So that's another reason to develop your ESP and your intuition and do your own research, because these people, I was listening to somebody that thinks that they really know, they can tell, like, if a person's good or bad, and they're psychic or whatever, and they're like, oh, no, that person's telling the truth. And I'm like, you would have no idea. Some of these people are taken in from, very young on and turned into something else. And then their family's also involved in some weird stuff that keeps them in a uniform way of thinking that this existence you and I live in, this reality of how Earth is, they don't know anything about that. So, it gets real confusing when it comes to talking about these different, I call them narratives that get set out. All it takes is for somebody to come up with something somewhat provocative that a somewhat intelligent mind that's new to this is going to grab onto and just sing away with YouTube or read a few books.
We're coming up on the end of the show, Darcy, so I'd like to...
Okay.
Karen, any final words for our listeners?
Just one. We're some pretty smart ladies here talking to just kind of listening. It's like, we got it going on. We got it going on. No, it's great. And Darcy, I appreciate it. I appreciate all the girls in the topic, because it's usually kind of overwhelmed with the dudes. But,
it's something Paula Harris and I talked about, is that there's no women in ufology hardly.
No. So, we're doing great. We got it going on.
And no young ones. Okay. I'm 34.
Darcy, final words for you, because we have a few seconds and we'll be off the air.
Sure. my advice to everybody is thoughts are very real, and that's the key to manifesting anything you want. If you want a good future for mankind, start working on yourself, harmonize yourself. A good way to start is davidsereda.com. He's got some great stuff. If you need to contact me, I'm Darcy Tarillion. They're probably going to post my information on the site. My number will be on there. I do one-on-one intuitive readings. I can do them over the phone. And I also do classes. I usually do them in Houston in person, but maybe something else can be worked out if somebody would like to do that. So I don't know what I'm missing. Do lectures and other radio shows too. So that's about it.
Okay,
and I appreciate y'all having me on. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, Darcy. Thank you, Karen. And much love and blessings to everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow, 8 to 10 Eastern on AquarianRadio.com. Much love and blessings, and aloha.
We came looking for a real Maine winter, and we found it. We were headed to the lodge. The fire. Really, the only thing I wanted was some hot cocoa and one more foot of snow. I forgot that days like this last longer than we think. This trail, these woods, these mountains, these stories. They start with us. They stay with us. Plan your Maine winter getaway at visitmaine.com.